Guys, it's Unders. Hello, what is up? I hope all is well. So, today what we're going to look at is making your drums knock in Logic. What I mean by that is when you've, say, got a loop and you've got like a bit of a flabby kick drum thing going on, how we can choose another sample to layer it up and how we can use some of Logic's effects plugins to tweak it and make it hit a little bit harder. There's ways that you can make it feel louder and more intense without actually changing it too much. So let's have a look into that. Alright, so here we are inside a Logic project. We've got a beat that we are working on here, and we've used a couple of loops, and one of the drum loops, which is this one just here, while it's got a really good groove and some good top end, it's got a really flabby kick drum. Let me show you what I mean. Yeah, it's just blur, blur, blur. It's not fun at all. The top end and everything's working quite nicely. Like it's got some nice ring to it. It swings all right. It's got a good feel. But the kick side of it is just weak. It's all boxy, not particularly nice sounding. So what I've done is I've listened to that, gone, okay, it's kind of flabby. It's got loads of 500, and when I say 500, I mean 500 hertz, like the boxy frequency. And I've gone and grabbed a kick that complements it by just playing it and hitting some kicks. And we've just grabbed this particular one here. And that is this dude. However, there's some other things I've done to that kick as well. You see there's a compressor on here. It looks like it's doing nothing, but it actually is. If we disable it, and enable it, pretty subtle what it's doing, but it feels like it's knocking a little bit louder and a little bit harder. And that all I'm doing, like compression wise, nothing's going on. It's not being affected. No auto gain going on. No makeup. Even the ratios on 0 point. And all we're doing is taking distortion here and pushing it into soft. It's literally it, but it makes such a good difference. So when you bash these two guys back together, you've got a much better loop. If I take that compressor back off, it still works, but it's not cracking quite as hard. Yeah, it's like it's earth shaking. It's like you can feel the room hitting with that kick drum. And that's what we really want. And it's a nice little technique, just putting a compressor on there. You don't want to compress the sound, but just using that distortion. You can use the hard and clip as well. They have similar effects. And then when you start layering your break up a bit more, so this particular beat, going for like a real war drum, I've got loads of epic drums and other bits kicking off, for example. So when you really start layering all your drums together, you can use this to accentuate certain parts, make them feel like they're hitting a little harder without having to actually push them. So if we grab just the drum breaks and how that sounds. Yeah, that snare is really smashing through as well. So another snare that we've layered in there. Currently nothing on it. As you can see, I've not really started mixing this. I've just leveled it out and there's a couple of effects going on. That hard distortion works really well. And just a useful thing in the compressor, if you switch these out as well, it does actually give you a slightly different sound. especially when you start applying a little bit of compression. So I use the Studio FET loads. It's quite a noisy compressor. If we just give it a little touch of compression in there and don't necessarily add any of the makeup gain, so you see what's going on there. It's actually reducing the level, or the peak level, of the kick drum, but it feels just as loud because we're adding this hard distortion here. So let me just do that again. So it's disabled, and I'll enable it, and it changes the sound over. It knocks a little bit harder, even though we're taking a little bit out. I find the Studio FET's best for that, but like play around and see what works best for you in your work. Yeah, that's crazy, right? So it's knocking a lot harder, but actually it's less in level because there's no makeup going on. There's no auto gain going on. So it's reducing it by, I think, around 3 dB there, but it feels actually a little bit harder. Now you can also do this using other distortion, but for just grabbing the compressor and using it directly in there. Great technique. You know, you can apply this to your overall drum bus as well. So let's say in this particular track, as we've got it going, the drums are getting a bit overwhelmed. I don't think they are too much for the balance at the minute, but for an example. Yeah, you hear that? So we've reduced the actual volume of the drums. As we've pushed that little soft distortion in, they're knocking through so much more. Now, you might do this, it might have a negative connotation on your drums and affect them slightly, but in a lot of cases, you're going to do this and get away with it and build the sound you want, especially if you're going for this kind of sound of hip hop. It works well. So let me just do that again. Disable this. We're going to listen to the drums in the whole mix, then we're going to enable it and just hear how they pop out, even though they're being reduced in level. Yeah, now they've gone up by 0.8 of a dB there, which is a tiny increment, but for the amount they're now escaping through in the mix, well worth doing, well worth it. So that's just a technique to make your drums knock in Logic. I hope that was helpful for you guys, and I will catch you on the next video.